start this portion of the program with a couple of quiz questions. Raise your hand if you can tell me the number one truth. This lady in the blue shirt told me she knew the number one truth. What is the number one truth?
That the VA is the best in the world.
The VA provides the best health care in the world. That's the number one truth. I always start with that, because that's the thing that needs to stay in focus and in the front of our heads all the time, every day, in every transaction that we have with a veteran, with a family member, with a co-worker, whatever it is. That number one truth has to be our central focus. Everything has to start there, and everything has to come back to there. Let's move on to the next question. What have you heard today? Let's talk about some of the things that you've heard today. Let's start with changing the climate. How many of you have heard of changing the climate? That's great. It's gratifying to know that the word is spreading. Those of you who have been to the program, I know from the session we had yesterday, we had a program called Sustaining the Climate, where we tried to develop initiatives and plans for carrying that effort forward on an ongoing basis so that it just doesn't die on the vine and become the flavor of the month. So it's great to know that that word is spreading out there. Now, you got a handout earlier called We Believe. Now, I'm going to ask you specifically, and don't look at your papers. It's cheating. Somebody tell me one thing that sticks with you from reading over that document. Say again? You said fun? Fun, okay.
Respect.
Respect. What else sticks with you?
Escort the people.
Escort the people. Personal service. It's how we do what we do. What else sticks with you from the We Believe document? Teamwork, attitude, acknowledgement. Sioux City? Anything? Mueller? All right. Those are the things that stick with you, and that's great. What are the 3 C's? Who can tell me what the 3 C's are? Commitment? Change? Communication. Bingo. Right on. You were paying attention. What about Mr. Bockelman's presentation? What did Mr. Bockelman say that really sticks with you?
The effort to provide staffing for off tours and Saturdays for pharmacy and laundry services as well as SPD.
Okay. Specific actions planned to address concerns that you folks have raised. That's huge. What else from Mr. Bockelman? I feel like Donahue. Okay. What else from Mr. Bockelman's presentation sticks with you? Up here.
Expanding into the local communities even more than we are now.
Taking outreach to a whole new level, and the emphasis and the focus that's being put on those efforts by leadership. That's great. What about what Ms. Lowry had to say? What did you take away from the presentation that she made?
That the number of awards and everything that gone up over the years, that people don't realize, how much has been put into it.
Okay, there's a greater level of investment in recognition than a lot of people realize. And it's growing. And that's a piece of good news that I think we can all take away. Now, what about Colonel Gertis? What stuck with you? What one thing really stuck with you from the Colonel's presentation?
We can't make the same mistake we made for Vietnam vets and the problems they face, the soldiers over in Iraq right now, in perspective what we think are our problems.
Great. It's a whole different perspective, and I'm glad you mentioned that because we're going to talk about perspective in just a few minutes. So there are a lot of very important messages that were delivered this morning that all tie together. Where does commitment fit into this process? We can't have commitment as an organization without having commitment at the individual level. So the question is, how committed are you to making a change in the climate in which you work and in which our veterans are served? Let's back up a second. How many of you, by show of hands, think that there are things in the climate at the VA today that can and should be changed to better the climate for you as a worker and better the service to the veteran? Show me your hands. Okay, that's unanimous. That even the Sioux City people voted for that. Now, what's stopping you from making that commitment? Sometimes it's focus. If my focus is out there on the veteran, on my colleagues, on the service we provide, then I'm much more likely to commit to making a change. So focus is one of the things that prevents us from committing to change. What's another thing? Perspective. What is our perspective? And I don't mean as an organization. Each of us has to ask ourselves, what is our perspective as an individual? How do we view the organization? And that's a choice that we make. Consciously or unconsciously, we make that choice. We choose our perspective. So if we talk about focus, for example, we might focus too close into ourselves, and that prevents commitment. Are we focused on ourselves? Are we looking inward? Or are we looking outward? It's that individual that's looking outward that's going to be more likely to have a focus that leads to a commitment to helping make a change, regardless of how much the change might be needed. Now, what about perspective? If we get too close to a situation, we lose our perspective. Here's an illustration of that. That's a nice little view of something. It looks like it might be a mountain range or part of a Naugahyde seat cover. That's the too close to the situation view. It leads us to make incorrect decisions. But if we back up and get the big picture and see how that fits into the larger image, what we find, the first image you saw was the right foreleg of that beast. So it's focus and it's perspective that frequently keeps us from committing to make a change. And it's a personal commitment. This organization does not do anything corporately. The actions of the VA, we hear about that, or the behavior of the VA, is actually the aggregate of the actions and behavior of each and every one of you. So it has to come down and start at the individual level. Another way of thinking about perspective, if our perspective and our focus is limited, we don't see what's coming. And if we don't see what's coming, we can't be ready for it. That's the importance of perspective and focus on personal commitment. So, what's wrong in the organization? What are some of the things we like to gripe about in terms of our job? We're all friends here. There are no repercussions, and we all know what they are anyway. So talk to me. What are some of them? Sorry?
Communication.
Communication. Poor communication. What else do we sometimes grouse about in terms of our jobs?
Staffing.
Staffing. Not enough people. What else?
Not enough room.
Not enough space. Okay? What else?
Not enough money.
Not enough money.
Bureaucratic rules.
Bureaucratic rules.
Outdated systems.
Outdated what? System. Outdated systems. You people can communicate. You can contribute. It's okay. We love you. What? What do you like to grouse about, Sioux City? Don't make me come up there. You think you're unique? Nah. Let me show you what some of the most common complaints are that people have in any kind of job. The tasks that they have to do, the working conditions, the policy, the risk, the pressure, the people. Sometimes the level of our complaint and the vehemence of our complaint is influenced by our perspective. So I want you to think about those elements as they relate to your specific job. And let's take a look and see if by changing the perspective a little bit, we have a different view of some of these issues. Let's take a look at some other jobs. Think those people have some working conditions complaints that they sometimes make? How about space? They don't complain about that, do they? No. Okay, let's look at another job. Okay. You want to talk about not enough space? You want to talk about the people that you have to work with? Now look at this image. Look, I couldn't hear that, fortunately. Look at this image and think this. The smell. Okay? All I'm saying is it's a question of perspective. Think about your job and the things you like to complain about and take a look at this job. Not enough space? Too much to do? Working conditions? Okay? It's all about perspective, isn't it? Or how about what you have to deal with day to day on your job compared to this? That, by the way, is a different elephant than the one we saw earlier. But you think you get dumped on in your job? Different perspective. The point is, it's all about perspective. If we get the things into perspective, as Colonel Curtis pointed out, suddenly our mindsets start to change a little bit, don't they? Now, let's get personal. Before we get into communication, let's stay with commitment just one more minute. How many of you are willing right here, right now, to make a personal commitment in front of your peers to do what you can to better the climate that you work in? How many of you? Raise your hand. Now remember, your peers can see you except the ones from Sioux City. And 6 of them have their hands up. Now, let's tie that concept to communication. Let's tie the ideas of commitment and communication together and talk about how they get to change. You just communicated a willingness to change. You communicated a commitment in one way. Now let's try doing it in another way. Who had their hand up earlier that they're willing to commit? Okay, would you stand up, please? What's your name?
Sue.
Sue with the fat lips. Sue, where do you work?
In pharmacy and telephone care.
Okay, I want you to tell your colleagues right now that you're committed to helping change your climate.
I am committed to helping change my climate.
Let's hear it for it. We're talking personal commitment here. Who's willing to make a personal commitment? Don't be pointing at somebody else. I know you're willing for him to make a personal commitment. I get that. Who's willing to make a commitment? Okay, stand up, please. What is your name?
Brenda Stevens,
Brenda, where do you work?
voluntary service.
Voluntary service. I want you to tell everybody you're committed personally to making change in the climate.
I'm committed personally to make a change in the climate at the VA.
I want to hear support for her. Remember that communication has to be two-way. If I'm willing to make a commitment, I want to know that you're going to support me, don't I? Absolutely. And the support is just as important as the commitment, isn't it? Yes. Okay. You willing to make a commitment? Oh, you are. Okay, I'll get to you. Stand up, please. Are you willing to support her if she makes a commitment? Yes. Stand up, please. I want you, what is your name?
Sarah Eckert.
Sarah, and your name is? Trish. I want you to tell Sarah that you're willing to make a commitment to change the climate of the VA.
I'm willing to make a commitment to change the attitude of everything in the VA.
Okay, your own words, that's fine. Now, Sarah, I want you to tell Trish that you are committed to supporting her in her efforts to do that.
Trish, I'm committed to
Say it in
support.
your own words. I'm here for you. You can just say it that way.
I'm here to support you in your commitment to change the climate in the VA.
That's what you need. That's what you need. And if I hadn't come to you with the mic yet, don't think you're off the hook. Because now I want you as a group of individuals to do the same thing. And here's how we're going to do it. We're going to start with the folks down here. I want you to tell me as one that you're committed to changing your climate. Tell me.
I'm committed to changing the climate.
That was wonderful. Now, you folks upstairs, I want to hear you tell these people that you're committed to supporting that change. Tell me. Okay, now we're going to turn it around. I want you to tell me that you're committed to making the climate better. Tell me. I'm committed to making the climate better. That wasn't as enthusiastic as it should have been. And now I really want to hear from you people down here that you're committed to supporting them.
I'm committed to supporting them.
That's what you got to have. You've got to have the commitment, and you've got to communicate that commitment to each other, or you're done. You won't get the change. That's where the change comes from. So, what's stopping you? How are you going to translate that commitment into action? What are you going to do differently tomorrow than you did today that shows people that you're committed? What is that going to be for you? And when you see another VA person who's making a change in their behavior to help improve the climate, what are you as an individual going to do to support that change? Those are questions that can't be answered from the podium. Those are questions that each of you has to answer in here and then answer out there to your colleagues. Are you willing to do that?
Yes.
Okay, 4 of you are. Let me rephrase the question. Are you willing to do that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Are you willing to do that? Yes. Because you got drowned out by these people down here. They are just a lot louder than you. All right. Plus, it takes so long for stuff to get here from Sioux City. The price that we pay for the commitment or for the change that we all say we value has to be high in proportion to the value of the change. Throughout this network, people have taken the concepts of changing the climate, taken them back to work, put them into use, and they're starting to get results. And how do I know that? I know that because I have the opportunity to go to different facilities on different kinds of projects, doing different things with the VA. I always, as I said, I've been working with the VA for about 15 years now. I recently had occasion, for example, to go into the Des Moines facility to shoot a video. I was stopped almost everywhere I went in that facility by people who had attended Changing the Climate, who wanted to tell me something that had happened with their life or with their work experience as a result. I had a guy from dietary, as I was walking past there, came out and grabbed me, physically. He was a big guy too. He said, I gotta tell you, I came back from that program. I started using the concepts that we talked about in that program with one individual in my work group that I've had problems with. We had an antagonistic relationship day after day at work, and it was making me nuts. But I took the concepts from Changing the Climate and I started using them in my dealings with this individual. You can't believe the change that has been made. We're actually getting along. I had another situation come up, and I got this one was sent to me in an email. There was a supervisor in Central Iowa who went to the program. She went back, she was so excited about the possibilities that were laid out in Changing the Climate. She went back and had a meeting with her group, and she said, you know what? This is not mandatory. This is not a mandatory training program, and we've argued about that within our group and with the folks at the network level. We don't want it to be mandatory. We want people to come Changing the Climate because they want to. So anyway, the supervisor said to the group, this is not mandatory, but I strongly encourage all of you to attend the program. And they did. And when the last one came back, had another meeting, and they decided as a group that, you know what, we're going to do this. In our group, this is how we're going to act. This is how we're going to communicate. This is how we're going to deal with each other. Within 6 months of that decision, turnover in that group dropped to 0. Absenteeism fell 48%. Tardiness went to nearly 0. Reports of contact and grievances disappeared. It came to the attention of the leadership of that facility, and the supervisor was promoted to another unit. Now, what happened after that? Did it die? No. Better than that. The new supervisor that came into the group sat down with the group and said, okay, you guys have a reputation all throughout this facility for how you operate. Talk to me. What's the deal? They explained it. The new supervisor had never been to changing rooms, but then signed up and went and said, you know what? We're going to keep on keeping on. And they did. And they've still got those same results. The supervisor that left went to her new organization and did the same thing. And their results have started to show the same dramatic kind of change. The point is, not only can it work, it does work. But what makes it work is personal commitment and the willingness to communicate that commitment to each other and to support each other in our efforts. You can't have effective change without those things. You just can't. Your leadership team, people like me who work with the VA from the outside, I'm here to support you in any way I can. I want to see this change happen because I'm committed to the VA. I love the VA. From working with you guys and as a veteran, I love the VA. I want to see it improve. But I can't do it. I can help you. I can support you. Your leadership can help you and support you, but you don't have to do it. And it starts with a personal commitment. Questions? Comments? Any rags? Any bottles? Any bones? Recyclables? No? Well, I know that Mr. Bachman has a few parting words to say. I want to thank you not only for the opportunity to be here with you today, but for your attention, your participation, and your willingness to make the commitment, even those of you from Aberdeen and Sioux City, who are so far out there that I can get on the seat. Thank you all very much, not only for being here today, but for being who you are and doing what you do. And what is the #1 truth? The VA provides the best health care in the world. Tell me.
VA provides the best health care in the world.
I want them to hear you on Dakota Avenue. Tell me.
VA